Machakos is a booming commercial center and has a variety of businesses. But one of the biggest business launches happened in December 2010, when the Mulleys family opened the first branch of Mulleys chain of supermarkets. Mulleys stood out for one reason. It was the first locally owned supermarket. It was then called Peter Ngumbi Mulley and Son Supermarkets. Mzee Peter Ngumbi Mulley was known as an ardent businessman, but he is also remembered for his focus on ensuring members of his family got an education.
It all started with my father, who was not educated at all. So he started with a meager beginning, trading wares and selling chickens and eggs in the local markets, and eventually went to start selling wood carvings in the neighboring countries. He was not able to communicate with the foreigners that would come and buy the carvings, so he used to speak with his hands. And he made a promise to himself that one day he would educate his children and his younger brothers and sisters so that they'd never have to go through such trauma.
Mzee Mulley kept his promise to himself and ensured his family got the very best education. Some of them went to the United States for their higher studies. They surprised many when they came back home and decided to join their father in running his businesses.
People wondering, how can you have an opportunity to go all the way to America, get an education there, and come back to be a shopkeeper? So it was a hilarious story, and people made fun of us.
Armed with the education they needed, they were ready to take their father's business to the next level and build their father's legacy.
He had a total of 12 employees at the time. And within 2 to 3 years, we had around 200 employees. And I remember when I went to the States, in those days, we didn't have any supermarkets in Kenya. And when I saw them in America, I would get so fascinated. It was a dream. A dream started growing in my mind that maybe one day we would have a supermarket. December 2010, great day. All of Ukambani, all of our friends, everyone came to see the first supermarket owned by one of their own. So between 2010 and 2018, we were able to open up a branch almost every year.
Like the Mulleys siblings, Maina Gikonyo has his father's legacy in his hands. Maina is the managing director at Rwathia Distributors. Rwathia is named after the location in Muranga, where most of its founders came from, which means that Maina's responsibility extends beyond his family. Rwathia is one of the oldest and biggest distributor for East African Breweries Limited. When things are going well, Rwathia delivers stock to about 600 bars, most of them in Nairobi's central business district.
A group of young people from Rwathia came to Nairobi and started establishing businesses. They started hawking vegetables. From that business of hawking, they were able to develop and keep retail shops. After that, they went into small restaurants. And then they moved, after independence, they moved now from the Eastlands area and moved now to CBD area of Nairobi, where even up to now they own quite a few hotels and buildings.
Like the Mulleys, Mr. Gikonyo studied in the United States, and after completing his studies, Mr. Gikonyo returned to Kenya when it looked promising with opportunities for young people.
I came back in 1990, and so things were very tough. But we came probably fueled by the change that we could see was going to come up, after Kenya became a multi-party democracy. But we were, of course, disappointed, and so it was easy for us to just seize an opportunity that came our way. And the easiest was to go into the businesses where our families had interests.
As young as he was, he brought on board some changes that worked for the business. Despite the presence of the older directors and management, they have been able to embrace the new ways of doing business.
They probably recognize the shortcoming that they had, and true to form, we have been able to instill a level of sophistication that was probably a bit more difficult for them. Now we have systems that make us manage our stocks better. manage our data better. And as technology now gets advanced and we have to run businesses in a modern way, we had no choice but to embrace technology.
Some of the top and profitable companies globally are family-owned, such as Walmart Inc., owned by Walton family, and Ford Motor Company, owned by the Ford family. Some of these companies have been passed from generation to generation for decades. The transition of businesses from one generation to another has been vital for the survival of these businesses. This applies to the family businesses in Kenya that aspire to exist for generations to come.
We grew up in the business from day one, and my mom and my dad made us very close. So we enjoyed having hours other than mine.
For now, Mr. Gikonyo and Mr. Mulleys have the task to steer the businesses and ensure that they too facilitate a smooth transition to the next generation, with hopes of ensuring they are sustainable for generations to come, just like the top global family companies.